welcome back to iStream TV. We are here live from a Brighton Music Conference on Brighton Beach, and in the Audio Mango studio van we are in right now, I have a very special guest in the shape of Simon Shackleton.
Hi Sacha, so good to see you. It's been ages.
So good, Shaq. So some people may know Shaq as many different guises. I know him as Shaq. That's how I always think of you.
I know. Well, that's kind of how, like, my surname's Shackleton, so that's how that started out. I mean, these days I kind of go by anything as long as it's not an insult. I'm happy. You know.
You can call me anything as long as it's nice. So when I first came in contact with Simon, he was known as Elite Force. A big part of your life, Elite Force, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, I can't believe that I actually released my first Elite Force record 26 years ago.
Wow.
Which is outrage. It was like 96 or something.
I didn't realise it was quite so early.
Yeah, and you know, I'd been DJing. Before that, I'd been DJing for 7 years. So I started in '89, I think, in the kind of acid house.
So you played in acid house in them days?
Yeah, well, actually, I got my first start as a DJ playing at this huge student night in Exeter, where I was at university at the time.
Right.
And I was really good friends with Thom Yorke from Radiohead.
Ah, wow.
And so we were in a band together. He was, you know, a student at the art college, and we started making music together. But because he was the DJ at the big student night, he had a bit more disposable income than I did. So he'd always turn up with these amazing kind of white labels and stuff. And I just worked as a bouncer at the club to make a bit of money. Right. And then when he left to do Radiohead, I just like filled his boots basically. And I'd never DJed before, but my first DJ set I think was '89, and I played for 5 hours. It was like a open till close sort of deal. Wow. To 1,000 people, and I'd never
what
owned
a story,
any decks.
Shaq.
So,
I never knew that, and that's an amazing
in
story.
At the deep end, right?
Yeah. You a Radiohead fan?
I am. I'm a huge Radiohead fan. It was amazing back in those days as well. We actually released a couple of singles, which are quite rare now, as a student band. But I remember sitting down with Tom in a student house that we used to write all our tracks and and rehearse in. And I remember him coming back. I think it must be 1990 by then, or 91. But he came back from the holidays with this new track, and he sat down and played as Creep on his acoustic guitar.
Oh my god!
Just in the living room, and he's like, and he's all kind of like he's got his head down a bit, and he's just literally done this acoustic version of it. And then there was silence, and everyone's sort of, that was amazing. And he said, yeah, the problem is the record company want to put it as a B-side because it's got swearing in it, and we don't really want them to take the swearing out, so it's just going to be a B-side. And we're like, dude, that's incredible. Oh my
god. Was it a B-side in the end?
I don't think it was. I mean, it was obviously the track that broke them in America.
Of course, yeah.
But it may have been in the UK that it actually did come out on a B-side.
Got re-released.
Yeah, and then it was so big.
Oh my god, that is an incredible story. And are you still in contact with Tom?
Very, very vaguely. I mean, we have quite a lot of mutual friends who I've actually just recently started rehearsing for a live show that I'm planning to do as Simon Shackleton, which the goal at the moment is to launch it at ADE this year. Right. And we have a really good mutual friend. Like Tom and I have this very good mutual friend called John Matthias, who is he's a prodigious violinist, and the music I'm making at the moment is very much kind of emotive electronica. And John's a perfect fit as a violin player on these pieces, and he's agreed to do some of the live shows. But he also did the string parts on the first 3 Radiohead albums, I think.
I can see where all this influence is coming back through. Yeah.
It's so interesting because actually, like my college days, it's amazing. Like we had this little crew of people, and we really punched above our weight. We were all at Exeter University at the time, and I had one of my best friends at the time, one of my close friends was Frank Tope, who ended up being editor of Mixmag. Obviously Tom doing his Radiohead stuff, and then the guys that took over the student house I was in when I left, one of them is Felix Buxton from Basement Jacks.
Right.
And he then took on the job after I left and moved up to London, being the DJ at the student night. So yeah,
that's so cool. It's so cool. I love these stories. They're amazing. So you started off there. Quite couldn't have been a better place to start. Training ground, influences. I'm quite dumbfounded by them, to be honest. But so then you moved. Tell us how Elite Force happened.
Well, I moved up to London, and I actually signed a publishing deal with MCA, which was like a development deal, and they gave us enough money to be able to equip me and my mate Howie. We equipped a studio and started to learn how to make electronic music. So I was at college. I actually did a degree in classical music, so I was like classically trained. And I actually ran a contemporary music festival in Exeter, which I set up myself to bring in these sort of avant-garde classical composers from all over the world. So I had a finger in a lot of different pies when I was there. But when I moved up to London, me and my mate Howie started making music. We formed a band called Flicker Noise, and we signed to Deconstruction actually, and did a couple of singles with them.
Right.
And then that all kind of folded, and then we formed another band called Lunatic Calm, and we actually did some
That's the first one I heard of. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So we had some tracks used on some big movies around then, like The Matrix, the original
That's
Matrix, Spider-Man, Charlie's Angels, a few other things. And then as a sort of side hustle, I started doing this music as Elite Force. I was a bit frustrated that the Lunatic Calm stuff, it was with a major label, so it took quite a long time for things to go from I was finishing it and getting it out.
Lots of red tape.
Yeah, I was just like jonesing to get the music out there. And I'd started DJing again in London. I'd set up a label called Fused and Bruised, and we had a residency at the Dog Star in Brixton. And then we had a few others where we'd be doing like residencies at second rooms at big drum and bass nights, because we were pretty eclectic. We were doing some breaks, some house, some techno, just a mixed bag really. And Elite Force kind of came out of that. That was the first thing I released, one of the first things I released on Fused and Bruised, and it grew in tandem to Lunatic Calm.
Right.
And then sort of come 2000, 2001, I started getting a lot of bookings as
the break scene was really kicking off at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was, for the next sort of 15 years, I was pounding the pavement doing that.
Pounding the pavement, touring the world.
Absolutely, yeah. Air miles, getting racked up here and there, and playing anywhere from... I played a lot in some really interesting locations like mainland China. I used to go and play in every 3 months or 4 months. Kazakhstan, it's just...
Yeah, I sent a few DJs to Kazakhstan.
Right, it's so interesting.
Deepest, darkest Siberia I sent a few to as well.
God, crazy. Some of those adventures were really interesting, because you felt like at the time it was a new frontier really for electronic music.
Yeah.
And I had that the first time round. I had that in the UK with Acid House. Then I had it again going out to the States for the first time in sort of 97, 98, where electronica was just starting to happen.
Yeah.
And then again in some of these countries in sort of beyond Europe, where, like in China, for example, people would just... for the first time, there's like emerging middle class that had a bit of disposable income, and they were like, let's make a club. Let's do some music.
Yeah. There's some amazing clubs in those kind of areas.
Incredible, yeah.
Yeah, and it really kicked off in the States as well for you, didn't it?
It did, yeah. I mean, the States has probably been my biggest market for years and years. I've done a lot of tours. I toured with Crystal Method a few times, like full-on 5-week tour bus tours when we were doing the Lunatic Calm stuff. And then I've been a regular DJing out there since 2000, really, and... it's like there's a few cities there like San Francisco Denver and LA that are like home from home for me, really. So
Yeah, you're out there regularly, aren't you?
I have been over the years, not so much in the last sort of few years, obviously COVID, and also I've just like stepped back from DJing a bit and focusing more on the live side of things. So
and while we're talking about the States, we can't not touch upon the burn.
Absolutely, yeah.
I tell you what, Shaq, I have a really, really, really vivid and strong memory of my first burn. When I had taken my other DJ, so you were already a bit of a veteran as far as I was concerned at that point, but I took my newer DJ, so Will Bailey, I took out there. He'd been there the year before. He told me when he came back that all he did was sit in a tent and heat up.
It's a disaster. That's a long way to go.
I was like, why didn't you leave your tent?
You could microwave yourself and save a bit of money, couldn't you?
But anyway, yeah. So Jeffa, the leader of the Roots Society, originally contacted Will Bailey on MySpace, and that was how that relationship